Gotta disagree. The Sith influenced the imbalance, but the Jedi facilitated it, and Luke admits to it when he talks about the fall of the Jedi being their hubris, a trait he continued. His new order wouldn't have fallen if he'd learned from the errors of the Jedi before him, but they were the ones exhibiting well-intentioned arrogance and taught him their ways without correction. It was the continuation of that well-intentioned arrogance that allowed the dark side to re-emerge and become corrective energy again. They didn't learn, so the lesson repeated. I absolutely see where you're coming from, because the Jedi didn't help the situation, but there is a distinction to be made between the Jedi's flaws and the actual imbalance itself. Now, in the prequel era at the time of the Chosen One, the Jedi stopped listening to the will of the Force, and this did not help the balance at all. But that's not the Jedi causing the imbalance. The Sith created the imbalance, the Jedi didn't listen to the will of the Force to see how they can correct it, so in turn it made it worse. Yes, Luke critiques the Jedi for their hubris, and he isn't wrong. Their arrogance and their inability to adapt played a role into their downfall, but their mistakes are not the same as the dark side corrupting the Force. The Jedi at their height were flawed, but they weren't actively warping the Force for selfish gain like the Sith did. That is the fundamental key difference. Now, you say the Jedi facilitated imbalance, but in what way? Their mistakes allowed the Sith to rise. Absolutely, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But the Sith were the ones who caused the actual imbalance to begin with. If the Jedi simply existing in large numbers were an inherent problem, then the Force would have self-corrected that long before the Clone Wars. But it didn't. Instead, it was the Sith's rise to power that made things unstable. Luke's new order fell not because balance had to be corrected, but because Ben Solo was seduced by the dark side, which, as we have already seen, creates imbalance, confirmed in galactic history and from the creator George Lucas from my previous video. Luke's failure to prevent Ben's fall is tragic, but it's not the Force itself rebalancing things. It's history repeating itself due to a human error. Balance is about harmony in the Force, not punishing the Jedi for their mistakes. The cycle repeats not because the Jedi inherently disrupt balance, but because the dark side is always lurking, looking out for opportunities to corrupt. I hope it helped.